Budget process, a wildlife refuge near you, and radio that never goes out of style. The magazine starts now. Hello and welcome to another edition of the magazine. I'm Dan Ginden. It's June, and that not only means summertime, but in Marlboro, it means the new budget has been put together. Jennifer Tyrell gives us a detailed look at everything that goes into the budget process.
Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
And just like that, the Marlboro City Council passes the budget on another fiscal year.
Hold on. For those of you watching at home or reading about the budget being passed in the newspaper, you know it doesn't happen that easily. Let's back up. The month is December. That's right. In December, the mayor is starting a long process of planning the new fiscal year. June 30th is the deadline for the city to pass the budget.
We have conversations in terms of my finance team, where we want to be, what projections. We start some revenue forecasting projections, decide what our directives will be to department heads and put that out to department heads beginning of January. And then we usually have the budgets are submitted probably the end of February. We give the departments time to work on their budgets.
So I know what you're thinking. Seems to be overkill talking about a budget that won't count for several months. But think about it. This is a budget that just last year was $120.4 million. Patricia Pope has been a city councilor since 1998. She says thinking early about the budget is something that happens due to the protocol.
We do it a little backwards here in Marlboro. We approve our budget and then we set our tax rate. So, if we had flipped things around, I think it would work a little bit smoother, but that's the way that the state requires budgets to be done.
We have 45 days after the mayor sends down the budget to get it approved. We send it back to the mayor's office. They implement it. Everything has to be done before June 30th. And then we don't set the tax rate until October, November. Once we get free cash certified, then we can do the tax rate.
Council President Arthur Vigent knows a thing or two about the annual budget. He's been on the City Council in Marlboro since 1994. Paul Farrow came on board 10 years after Vigent in 2004. Farrow was also in agreement that thinking about next year's budget is a year-round pastime.
We spent a lot of time in May working on the budget, so we're thinking about it intensely then. But I think for all members of the Finance Committee, and most city councils for that matter, it's a year-round process because there's always transfers going on, there's always requests for moving money around, so you kind of track that and see how departments are spending money and where it's going. And it's a continuous learning process. I mean, every year when we do a budget, I learn something new about city government.
So while the council is waiting and thinking about those future numbers, the mayor, comptroller, and assessor create an overview of the budget, revenue, and growth projections, projected impacts on tax rates, and levy limits. All departments are included. It's a difficult process for these department heads, but it's not over yet. They will all get their turn in front of the Finance Committee, which really ends up being the entire council of 11 men and women. Although it may seem like a firing squad type of scenario, the councilors say it really isn't.
That's our job. I mean, we approve the money. We have the purse strings, the city council does. The mayor gets what we allow her to spend, or him or her to spend. So it's the city council's budget when it leaves, and it's important to know exactly what's in there. Are there areas we can make reductions?
And we want to make sure that if you say postage for the year is going to cost you $4,000, And for the last 3 years, and we typically have the backup documents from the last 3 years, we see that you've spent $2,000. Well, there's an extra $2,000 that we can take away. And not that we're taking it away from your department, but most likely we're taking it away so that the taxpayer isn't paying it. Because one thing we don't want to end up with is when free cash gets certified and everybody gets happy that we have $2 or $3 million in free cash. That's a good number for us to have. It's a good slush fund, not slush fund, but it's a good rainy day account when things go over budget, when there's that unexpected roof blowing off. What we don't want to have is $6 or $7 million in free cash, because that means ultimately we've taxed you too much.
Once the budget hearings are over, a public hearing is set up at the next city council meeting in order to allow residents to have their say.
I do receive emails and phone calls, and so I do get feedback from my constituents. It never, I guess it's a compliment to the cable station that it never ceases to amaze me how many people watch city council and watch the budget hearings and watch and know the details. How many people download the budget from the city website and follow along at home.
So I do get a lot of different opinions and things. Very rarely do you have anybody come up to you, and they might disagree with you, but they do it in a very respectful way.
That's how we ended up with Councilor Ossing and Councilor Pope. I mean, they, one of the first years I was on the city council, and we did make a reduction to the requested budget by the school committee. And you know, Councilor Pope was up in arms. Councilor Ossing was on my back deck, you know, trying to justify a couple years later the same types of things.
It is unfair to look at this process as politicians grandstanding. It's also never easy for the mayor. Furthermore, it isn't easy for councilors to play the role of the bad guys, making those hated cuts when necessary. They are aware of the potential changes they are creating for individuals as well as families in the city.
It's extremely difficult. I mean, you're talking with people's lives and livelihood, and so it is very difficult. I know some people think we just, you know, take the axe out and don't think about it, but it's not that way at all.
It is difficult. Nobody ever wants to do it, but we have, you know, it's easier when there's nobody actually sitting in that position. When somebody's sitting in that position, it is a horrible thing to have to do. But at the end of the day, you have to do what's right for the entire city, not just that one department or that one individual.
Luckily, Marlborough has a mayor that understands the process from both sides. Before becoming a successful leader of the city, Nancy Stevens was the chair of the Finance Committee.
Even as a counselor, it's a long, tedious process, but obviously a very necessary process. I think it adds a layer of transparency to the public to be able to see, you know, where their tax dollars are being spent and how they're being spent, and I think it gives a level of comfort to the council as the appropriating authority. It gives a level of comfort to the general public in terms of where their money is being spent. And there's the accountability there. And again, if there's specific issues that the councilors have or their constituents have brought up to them, it's an opportunity to really discuss that issue. As I said earlier, every issue or every solution has a budgetary implication, so it gives an opportunity to really be able to talk about it.
Once the whole budget process is completed, no matter how much arguing the council does, one thing is clear. They are working towards the same goal with each other and the mayor, to do what they think is best for the city and its residents.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
So now we are back to where we started. Do you feel like I have a better idea of how the budget process plays out? I know I do. For the magazine, I'm Jennifer Terrell.
Jennifer is one of our new reporters on the magazine, and we hope, as I'm sure she does, that you'll be seeing a lot more of her. Still to come on the magazine, a wildlife sanctuary that is closer than you think.
Hi, I'm firefighter Mark. I just got back from fighting a fire that could have been prevented. Here's an easy and simple way to protect you and your family from a fire. Change your batteries in your smoke detector. When replacing the batteries in your smoke detector, make sure that you have fresh, new batteries. When testing your smoke detector, you want to make sure that you push the test button. And don't forget about carbon monoxide in your home. There are two types of detectors to protect yourself from carbon monoxide. This one is battery operated and needs to be mounted on your wall. This one needs to be plugged into your wall outlet. So remember, be smart, be aware, be fire safe.
You are watching the magazine. I'm Dan Ginden. The Sudbury Wildlife Sanctuary provides a free and fun way to spend time this summer. Carl Wilhelm has the story.
Welcome to your National Wildlife Refuge area. Located just 20 miles west of Boston in Sudbury, Massachusetts, this 3,800-acre area is here to preserve the natural habitat. Great Meadows serves as headquarters for the 8 areas that make up the Eastern Massachusetts National Wildlife Refuge Complex. This is a network of lands and waters that are managed specifically for the protection of wildlife and wildlife habitats. Throughout the Wildlife Refuge, you can observe many plants and animals in what is only a small area of the most comprehensive wildlife management programs in the world.
Primarily our properties follow along the Sudbury and Concord rivers, and it's a great opportunity for people to get out there, do some paddling, bird observation. We do have 3 units where there's trails. Folks can go for some light hiking and wildlife observation. We have a trail loop here at our headquarters, the Ware Hill Trail and Red Maple Trail. Up in Concord, we have our Concord Impoundment Unit, where people can get in a couple miles of light hiking, some single track type trails, and then also they can walk along a dike where they can view wildlife in our 2 impoundments that we manage for waterfowl. And the last site where people can go hiking right now is in Carlisle.
Each area focuses on creating and maintaining productive habitats for a healthy diversity of species for all to enjoy.
We manage 8 national wildlife refuges from Nantucket up to Great Meadows, Assabet River, and Oxbow refuges. And our approximate total acreage for those 8 is around 10 to 11,000 acres. The purpose of this area, the Great Meadows National Wildlife Refuge, and refuges in general, is to provide a place for wildlife and habitat restoration, endangered species management. Migratory birds are our primary purpose here at Great Meadows, to provide stopover and nesting habitat for those birds as they're making, whether it be their journey north, or actually some birds do migrate south here. A lot of folks sometimes think all birds come north, but there's actually birds that migrate south as well. If a visitor was to come to all 8 of our refuges, one could experience most type of habitats that New England has to offer. We start at the coast, we have a barrier beach, then we have salt marsh habitat, as one could say migrate up to Mashpee National Wildlife Refuge. We have the floodplains as you get more inland here in the Sudbury, Assabet, Concord watershed area, where we have 3 of our local refuges. You have the floodplain, and then you have upland forests, which can host vernal pools. We also have pond habitat. We have grasslands, old meadows that we manage for, and then we also have our 2 impoundments, which are man-made water bodies that we manipulate the water levels based on the time of year for different types of birds that may be arriving, and to provide a stopover and feeding habitat. So we have, we've got about 5 or 6 different habitats that could be categorized throughout our 8 refuges. But oftentimes within those habitats are what one could call a microhabitat. You could be in a forest and find, 4 or 5 different types of vegetation covers, wetlands in those areas as well.
This trail that I'm walking through now is known as the Ware Hill Trail, which leads all the way down to the Sudbury River. Evidence of the use of these trails by humans has been found dating as far back as 11,000 years. Native Americans used the area for transportation, hunting, and fishing. You may not be able to see all of the animals that call this area home. Animals such as deer, beaver, foxes, and otters are present, but more difficult to find.
You need to come back regularly. You got to hit the right time of day, the right time of year, the right season. But there's definitely some type of observation and new experience that can happen every time you come back, 365 days a year.
If you want to see some wildlife, here are some tips. Dawn and dusk are the best times to spot wildlife. Try sitting quietly in one location, let the wildlife come to you. Listen closely. You often hear more than you see. Look for animal signs such as tracks, feathers, and nests. What you are sure to find in this area are birds of all kinds. Over 220 different species live and visit this region.
We work on plans. How are we going to manage our habitats? What are the type of visitor experience opportunities that are best fitted on our refuges? So there's a lot of background work and research that goes into that. Right now we're working on 3 of our refuges for our 15-year plans. What are we going to do with these refuges? What are the goals? What are the objectives? And what are the strategies to perform those objectives for the public?
Great Meadows is 90% wetlands. Invasive species play a large role in this area. Volunteers spend many hours removing them from the area during peak months.
We heavily depend on volunteers. Many projects would not be happening if it was just staff. We have also 2 Friends groups, Friends of Assabet River National Wildlife Refuge and Friends of Oxbow National Wildlife Refuge, where they really spearhead additional volunteer efforts in getting local community members involved in their backyard. Volunteers oftentimes are from the area where the refuges are, whereas staff maybe, but we might not be. And so they really have a stake in seeing progress happen at their local refuges, from invasive plants pulling, bird monitoring, surveys, Blanding's Turtle Project we're working on right now, anurin surveys. Things would not happen without volunteers.
Great Meadows is easy to get to. It is located off Lincoln Street at 73 Ware Hill Road in Sudbury.
We do have an initiative right now in the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service called Connecting Children with Nature, where we're really trying to put ourselves out there even more so to get kids to refuges or a park, anywhere they can get outdoors, their schoolyard, to start to observe nature and realize that they are a part of it. We're concerned if kids are not out there right now, we're going to have a whole generation gap of people who did go outdoors to now kids who have not. Those are voters, those are future stewards, those are potential future employees and volunteers. So it's one of our nation's top priorities in our agency. We would recommend for anyone who wants to experience getting outdoors to come visit us. We would love for more school groups to be coming here. Individuals can come on out. A person who's just looking for some solitude and escape, come walk a trail and just try to find some peace and get away from the craziness of the world. Families, they can come. I would suggest that people who maybe are a little timid to come on out and they're not sure what they might encounter on a trail, to come to one of our programs that would offer, so therefore they could get that little extra helping hand to see what nature has to offer and get that introduction and then go out on their own.
The refuge area is open to the public sunrise to sunset. Go for a light hike, picnic, or check in with the office for ongoing programs. Call 978-443-4661 or visit their website for more information and directions.
Come on and visit. These are your public lands. We're here working for you. Come get involved. There's people who live right around the block that just learned about us, this week, a year ago, by attending programs. So I can't say it enough. These are your lands. We're here to provide for you. These areas can always be improved on by people getting involved, feeling a connection. I won't be here for 100 years. We hope that these lands are, and the wildlife that exists as time changes and climate change and the issues that are on the forefront. But as long as people who live around here or might be visiting, the more of a connection the public can have with their lands, the more sustainable we know these refuges will be and the wildlife that depends upon them.
After visiting the National Wildlife Refuge areas and seeing all these diverse habitats, maybe you'll have a better appreciation for the different kinds of species that are right here in your own backyard. For the magazine, I'm Carl Wilhelm.
Still to come on the magazine, an amateur radio group that helps to make a difference in the community.
Obesity in America is at an epidemic level. During the last 30 years, the rate of childhood obesity has tripled.
Childhood obesity involves much more than simply being overweight.
So what can we do to help our children?
Plan family exercise. Take the kids to the park.
We can limit the snack or junk foods kept in our homes.
Go for a family walk or bike ride, or simply throw the ball around the backyard.
Together, we can make a difference in the health and well-being of our children.
Finally, in this issue, we take a look at a special group in Marlboro by going into the past. A couple years ago, we did a story on the amateur radio group in Marlboro. Here is Alyssa Gugliotti with their story.
Once a month, KD10S, K1IX, N1ZCD, KD1QS, K1DIN meet in the Marlboro Middle School cafeteria. The rest of the time, these hams talk to each other from the privacy of their own homes or wherever they happen to be.
I think somebody wants to find us as that hobby where two guys go out, buy a whole bunch of equipment, go home, set it up, and talk to each other about what they bought.
These hams and about 70 others are members of the Algonquin Amateur Radio Club. The club has been in Marlboro since 1976, and since then they've grown into a vital community resource.
Anytime we have any emergencies in the city, it's just a matter of a telephone call to one or two individuals, and they're all here, about 15 of them. Big volunteers for the city of Marlboro, both emergency management and many other areas for the city.
David Haralimbo is the club president.
The Algonquin Amateur Radio Club provides backup emergency communications and support to organizations within the Marlboro community, including fire, EMS, and of course we do stuff like security for the parades, and we do work with the hazmat days and helping the city.
The club members are drawn together by an interest in technology and radio communication.
The camaraderie, of course, between all the people involved in the organization, that's one of the best things. And getting out and getting together as a group, we get to do a lot of stuff. And giving something back to the community as well is a wonderful feature.
The first radios developed at the beginning of the 20th century were really amateur radios, examples of that human drive to communicate.
Hello?
In today's world, our communication needs have been many outlets, from instant messaging to cell phones, but amateur radio still have their place.
As in Hurricane Katrina recently, amateur radio proved to be one of the few links that survived and was able to maintain communications even though all the cell phone towers went down and email went down and computers went down. Amateur operators were able to provide continued processing of information to allow people to communicate and get word out of the community of what was needed in a very timely fashion. Because the first thing that happened when all the power went out is all the cell phone towers died within the first day or two because they didn't have power for their generators. So there's a definite need to maintain the amateur radio service.
Because of amateur radio's usefulness during emergencies, the Marlboro Emergency Management Team works closely with the Algonquin Amateur Radio Club. If the computers and phone networks die, the hams would still be able to coordinate emergency response efforts in Marlboro.
If we had a major disaster here in the city where we lost a fire in police radios, we would have police crews, we would have ham radio operators in the police station as well as in the cruisers as well as in the fire trucks to give us communications.
Yes, I am currently at the Algonquin Amateur Radio Club, and we are demonstrating the radio system to the local cable channel.
Good to have that demo going on. Anybody have any comments they want to make to W1POW, or anybody happens to be listening in over there?
While the technology and the camaraderie are a big attraction for radio club operators, the opportunities to learn are also important. The learning begins with a test for the initial operator's license and goes on from there.
There are a lot of things to learn all the time, and it's one of those hobbies that just, I mean, there's just tons to read. And of course, I'm a general class operator right now, and I'm going for my amateur extra class soon, I hope. But there's a big, thick manual of things to learn, and you know, some of it I know, some of it I don't know. I'll have to have other people teach me that.
And
so
you like that?
I love that.
After you get your license, the FCC issues you a call sign. Now all you need is a radio and a microphone, and you're ready to make contact.
At that point, you're ready to go. You can go out and pick up just a little portable, or you can go all out and add to it. I started out with a little portable, and it's growing.
One of the places hams get equipment is at flea markets, like the one the Algonquin Amateur Radio Club holds every February.
If I get the call, I will call across radio America. Right across America, I will call.
This here is an antenna for amateur radio for 10 meters, and
I'm going to, I don't know, who's in a grab box for $1, so I'm going to plug it in and see if it works.
I'm showing this piece of equipment that I built myself. And so I'm just showing it to some of my friends so they can see what I've done and so on and so forth. It's monitoring a piece of equipment for radio transmitters. I've been coming to this flea market since 1979, when Carl Field, W1SLH, was still living and helped put it together and so on and so forth, which is how I became introduced to the flea market. It's a great organization and I'm glad to be here.
When they talk, ham radio operators send their signal to a repeater on Sligo Hill, which then repeats the messages to other radio operators. Club member Tim Akita found the radio club to be a great way to get hooked into the community after moving to the area from California.
It's very easy to move between different places, to simply call up on the different calling frequencies or call up different repeaters or just talk on the radio and find other people that are interested in what you're doing, helping you set up your stations and giving you advice and support to get up and running again. So it's a very open and friendly community.
And plugging into the network of amateur radio operators isn't possible only in the U.S. It's also possible worldwide.
In 1991, as a member of the Massachusetts-Ukraine Citizens Bridge, I went to Ukraine for the first time. One of the first things that we did, or that I did, was to get in touch with the president of the Nikolaev Amateur Radio Society. And he couldn't speak English, but we had just enough common language on amateur radio that we could talk to each other.
Yes, good evening, gentlemen. The name here is Pete, Papa Echo Tango Echo. And yeah, I'm on the motorcycle, but I pulled over to the side of the road here. Initially, you just want to be able to use the repeaters, to be able to use the two-way radios. Then the next thing you know, you want to be able to work Africa. You want to be able to work the west coast of Africa, work into the Middle East, and be able to do it from home, but also be able to do it from the car. I mean, it's something else to work into the Middle East with 5 watts sideband from the parking lot of a supermarket just because you heard somebody in there. So you pick up the microphone and you answer the call back, and then you talk. Next thing you know, you're talking to somebody in Israel or you're talking to somebody in Jordan.
For more information about amateur radio and how you can get involved, visit the Algonquin Amateur Radio Club's website or the website for the American Radio Relay League.
There's all kinds of people out there. It's a very fascinating world when you get involved in ham radio. So I'll toss it back to you, and I'll let you guys get on with the net. I just wanted to check in. I heard you guys in there. So I will say 73s to all, and you all have a good night. KD1QS, back to net.
That's going to do it for this issue of the magazine. Next month, Rob O'Keefe will be bringing you a story on what training the Marlborough Fire Department is doing that could save lives. For all of us here at WMCT-TV, I'm Dan Ginden. We'll see you in the next issue.